This is what makes our beer. What's the highest ABV that you've been able to stretch it to?
On an IPA,
Yeah.
we haven't gone past 14%.
14? What up? It's your boy Scott. I'm excited to be here in Tehachapi to visit my boy Tyson at local craft beer. Let's go drink some beer. Y'all ready? Let's go. Yo, what's up, Tyson?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Good to see you,
Good
man.
to see you, man. How you been?
I've been great, man.
Well, hey, you want to get some beers?
Say less. Let's go, bro.
Let's go.
Hey, so
Cheers.
what are we drinking here?
This is our West Coast IPA, Snobs, our house IPA. I know it looks a little bit hazy, but that's just because it's so hoppy. That's
Wow.
6.9%, 69 IBU, all West Coast all the way, tons of Citra hops, El Dorado. It's really, really nice.
Where did your passion and where did all this even start? Because I know you've been in the industry, what, 7 years about?
We're about to have our 6-year anniversary.
Okay.
But I was definitely running around and brewing my homebrew recipes at commercial breweries before we were here. The passion really came for me through my wife. She was always a beer drinker. I didn't drink alcohol. When we got together, you know, we were young. And when she turned 21, I mean, I wasn't even 21 yet. And she'd be like, hey, pull over. I'm gonna go grab a beer. And she wouldn't just grab a beer. I mean, she'd literally grab like a 40 ounce, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like a lager or malt liquor or something, and drink a 40. And I would just be like, man, that smells gross. You
Yeah.
want to drink? No, it smells gross. You smell gross. I hate that stuff. You know, and she's over here, you know, and she just loves her beer. She always has. And around 2006, that was in the 90s. Around 2006, she bought me a homebrew kit and said, you know, I would love it if you drank beer with me. Obviously, you're not going to drink any of these beers you can find on the shelf. You don't like them, all the macro lagers.
Yeah.
And maybe you could do better. Here's the equipment. And I went all in. I grabbed every book at the homebrew shop that I could read, and I sat on the couch on Saturdays and read all these homebrew books and just got to brewing. Katie and I were homebrewing. We thought, how could we be more sustainable? Maybe like we could grow our own hops. So I hunted down some hop rhizomes and I started growing them in my front yard, hoping I could homebrew with them. Well, when we bought this place, I dug up the rhizome and I buried it right here. And it didn't really grow. We thought it was dead. Well, we've got these cornhole boards here. We've got these wires that strung up all these lights out here. And a couple weeks ago, some knucklehead threw the bag up and broke the lights down, leaving this suspension cord hanging right here. Well, all of a sudden, this thing pops out of the ground and starts growing right up my light support.
Wait, so you didn't even do this on purpose?
This is not on purpose. This is all an accident. You can see it all laying on the ground here because it didn't know what to do. So apparently they don't like to grow unless they have something to climb.
Yeah.
So it's just been sitting in the ground here for years. And as soon as this thing broke and laid on the ground, it grabbed it, started climbing up it. You can see all these cool hop cones in here.
Oh, wow.
Big fat cones sitting in there.
That's incredible.
So that's,
Yeah, I mean,
that was a surprise. Yeah, you can
Rip
pluck that
one
right
off?
off of there, yeah. Look at that.
oh, wow.
Big fat Chinook cone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We'll cut one of these open later. I'll show you what's inside, where all
Hell
the
yeah.
flavor comes from.
This is what makes our beer.
I typically start by deciding on the grains that I want to use, so that I know what kind of sugars I'm going to get, what kind of mouthfeel I'm going to get, and what kind of back-end flavors from the grains I'm going to achieve. Then I decide on yeast, and yeast typically is what determines your style. A lot of people think it's a look, a smell, a taste that determines the style, but I can make a recipe that is a lager. I can make a straight up Budweiser clone, but if I put New England ale yeast in it, it's not a lager.
Got it.
It's a New England ale.
Got it.
If I put a dry West Coast yeast in it, it's going to be a blonde or an IPA, depending on what kind of hops I put into it. So a lot of beers styles are determined by their yeast. You can't make a Saison without Saison yeast. You can't make a lager without lager yeast, and so on and so forth. So then I decide on my yeast based on style. Then come the hops, which are really your major flavor point and your bitterness point. Do I want no bitterness, like something like a slushy, or something mild, or something very bold, like a West Coast IPA? And then what type of flavors am I trying to achieve? Just a little bit of hoppiness from the kettle, or a full-blown IPA where we just load the fermenter up with tons and tons of hops. Speaking of hops, I have a fresh hop right here.
Awesome.
It was grown out back. The anatomy of the hop is quite interesting. You have your leaves. It comes in a cone like this. A lot of people ask me, aren't hops the cousin of marijuana? They're not the cousin of marijuana. They're literally the sister of marijuana. The scientific name of this plant is Cannabisae.
Oh, wow.
So basically, if you cut this baby open, you'll see all the lupulin packets inside that are these orange and yellow powder that'll come off on your finger, and that's where all your oils and flavors and your bitterness come from, is on the inside. So when they pelletize these hops, they basically dry them, get the stems off of there, and then they get run through, you know, compactor and stuff, and they put them into pellets for you, and then basically we rehydrate them, putting them into the beer. We cool that wort down, we send it through a chiller, and we transfer it right into a fermenter, and that's when we add the yeast and say, okay, here's your final product, full of sugar, get to eating. Give me some booze, baby. Depending on where we're going with that, once we have a completed base beer, with our hot side hops, our yeast that we've selected, our particular grains we've selected, that's where we can say, okay, well, if this is an IPA, we're gonna add some dry hops into the fermenter. Basically add hops into a finished product and let them soak and absorb all the flavor from the hops. Or fruit, for these fruit slushies. Or like the coffee stout, that's when I actually make, a lot of people buy cold brew, so they make their stout and then they add like cold brewed coffee and back blend it to make a coffee stout. I actually do that process all in one. Once I have a finished stout, I then cool the tank and I add the coffee grounds to the fermenter and let the coffee grounds soak in the fermenter and actually make a cold brew out of the beer itself.
Some of your triple hazy IPAs, I couldn't believe, being around 10% alcohol, how you hit it and it tasted that good.
Slow fermentation, man. We do not let that alcohol bite come out in those beers. To me, some people want it. Some people want like this sharp, you know, you ever been in a bar and somebody's complaining about their mixed drink? Like, I can't taste the tequila. And you're like, it's a balanced drink, that's why. So some people are like that with beer. They're like, this thing's 10%, what? I don't even taste any alcohol. But the majority of folks appreciate the fact that it goes right down and you do not know that you just had something 10%, so your head changes.
I can tell you, after drinking a 4-pack of those, I was like, what? It felt like I drank a 30-pack, you know what I mean? 30-pack of beers. Like, what's the highest ABV that you've been able to stretch it to?
On an IPA, we haven't gone past 14%.
14? That's crazy.
That was batch 600. We actually.
Which one was that?
We called it Keep It 600. That was our batch 600. It was a quad IPA, I guess we were calling it. And that thing was loaded to the bone. It was so smooth. I used an interesting strategy on that. I left a lot of sugar behind. Okay. So I made this incredibly high gravity beer that typically, if it would have fermented all the way, or not all the way, it did ferment all the way, but if we would have used all the available sugars for alcohol, probably would have been like 20%.
Oh, wow.
But the way that we manufactured the beer, it stopped at 14%, and there was enough residual sugar left in the beer that the sweetness cut through the alcohol content. So again, it was just super smooth and very viscous on the mouth, very hoppy. People loved it. I had guys come in here and would just order one. I don't know what was going on. There were several guys I could think of right now. Come to the bar, like, 600 please. They would stand there, drink the whole thing, throw the money down on the counter and leave.
Wow.
Like, I guess it was that effective. Then,
Right? Like
yeah,
one and
at
done. baby.
14%, I'm just gonna slam it right now and get out of here.
So, I mean, I personally loved some of your triple hazy, and then I had some of your slushy beers, the sour beers. And I was just in love with all the stuff that you do, man.
Thank
So
you.
honestly, when I went out to set to start doing some collaboration beers, you're one of the first people that I talked
Thank
to,
you.
and
I
I was like,
appreciate
bro, we have to do one. So, you know, this is actually our second collaboration, but we've been talking for so long about doing a collaboration.
I had to get my tanks upgraded to facilitate that. We were brewed to the max, so we just put in a whole nother glycol unit and 2 bigger tanks and got rid of some smaller tanks, and now we're ready. We're ready to start hitting some things that are outside of our regular channel of distribution, such as doing collaborations with you.
I remember talking to so many breweries and brewery owners, and everyone's like, no, we're not gonna do hazies. We're not gonna
Hazy
do
is
hazies.
lazy.
Hazy's lazy. And now their hazies are outselling all of their West Coast IPAs.
Hazy is so far from lazy. I mean, anybody that you caught saying that back in the day, just either, in my opinion, they were either having trouble executing, so this was their excuse to not do it, or they just simply didn't know what they were talking about. Because the precision that it takes to make a hazy IPA, I mean, you have to time your hop additions like a robot. There is no leeway one way or the other. You have a completely different beer, or it's not hazy, or it's too bitter for the style, whatever it is. I mean, one misstep, there's no forgiveness in hazy. And you have to absolutely nail it. What temperature you get those hops in the kettle at, the exact gravity or Plato, whatever language you speak, when you put that first dry hop into the fermenter, it's all so very precise.
But the thing a lot of people don't really get is the business side of it.
Oh boy.
There's a business side of it.
Is there ever? One of the main things I think that people don't understand is that there's kind of this whole, like, if you build it, they will come mentality when it comes to breweries, but it's just simply not true. Just like any business, it needs marketing, it needs a presence, it needs typical advertisement terminology, it needs a call to action.
Yes.
People have to understand why. Why do they want your product? Why do they need to come to you? Being local is definitely, you know, capturing your local market is definitely
Important.
the easiest part and an important part. But once you want to venture outside of your own backyard, why?
Yeah.
Why would somebody pick yours over the beer next to it? Why would that store owner even bring your product in to put on precious, precious shelf space that is so valuable to that store owner? There's just a lot there. You know, your keg management. I would say the 2 top things that got me were assuming that if you put that somebody bought a keg on an invoice, that was some sort of tracking system for you later on to find out where all your kegs are. Oh boy, you had better have an extremely unique, specific way of tracking where your kegs went outside of simply, hey, Sky bought 2 kegs, it's on invoice 2526, and I'll find that later, it's on there. No way. Your customer list gets this long, you have no idea, you're not going through 10 invoices ago to see how many kegs of yours Sky has, so that's something I think that a lot of people don't understand. I would also tell people, go bigger if you can.
Yeah.
Everybody, including myself, has the same idea, especially when they're starting with limited funding and a lot of people, I was fortunate enough to be in business my whole life before this. So I brought a lot of skills with me to the table, but a lot of people, this is I'm making the decision to dive in head first, quit my job, take this money that I've saved, maybe I borrowed a little bit from my friends and family, and I'm going all in on my first business, and then this is what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
I was uniquely qualified to be in a rough position, basically, and grow step by step, piece by piece, where that probably would have toppled inexperienced business owners.
Yes.
Mistakes get made. I mean, along the way, you might have to learn how to operate your business with 10 bucks in the bank.
Yep.
And if you haven't been there, you haven't been hungry enough to survive.
You know what? I mean, you know, as an entrepreneur myself, I mean, we've ran into times where you're literally having to sell off one of your assets just to put money in the bank to keep the payroll going, make sure that you feed your because we're nothing without our team. Like,
Yeah.
without our team, we can't do anything. So,
Payroll first.
Payroll first.
Payroll first. That is a general business thing. I can't tell you how many small business employees I've heard from where they go, when money's tight, we don't get paid. That's the opposite direction of
We
the
don't
way
get paid.
Yeah, we shouldn't get paid. They should get
get
paid.
paid.
Always first. I
Yeah.
mean, without your employees, you can't do anything, and you kind of think that you can, but you gotta pay your employees first. It's like employees first, ingredients for beer second, and then everything else comes after that. So, I mean, it's a difficult business, but it can be very fulfilling and very rewarding with the festivals, the love from the customers.
Woo! What an amazing day today. I hope you guys learned a whole lot about beer, a whole lot about the beer business and the beer culture. Now, what I want to know, where do y'all want to see us next? Hit us up at Sippin with Sky on Instagram, and I'd love to get your feedback, and we want to be where you want us to go. Let's go, baby. Love you guys. Appreciate you.